Good evening, councillors. My name is Tony Cordy and this is the July 2021 meeting. Commence proceedings. I would like to acknowledge that we're meeting on Jara country, of which the members and elders of the Jara community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public by electronic media, including YouTube. The Local Government Act, the Act, Part 12, Section 395 of the Act, states that council meetings may be closed to the public during the prescribed period, which is 1st of May 2020 to 27th of April 2022, provided it is live streamed and the community have been provided means to submit statements or questions for council response. This is to ensure local government decision making can continue and remains transparent during the coronavirus pandemic. Councillors and council staff are required to continue to act in accordance with the Councillors' Code of Conduct and the Local Government Acts 1989 and 2020, local laws and the other acts and policies as prescribed. Where there are technical difficulties in being able to broadcast the meeting to the public, the meeting will be adjourned for 30 minutes until the issue is resolved or postponed to 6:30, 3 p.m. on the 3rd of August 2021. Councillors, I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor McClure.
Mayor, I'm pleased to move the recommendation that council closes the meeting of the council 22nd of July 2021 under the Local Government Act 2020, Part 12, Section 395, and note 2 notes that where there are technical difficulties in being able to broadcast the meeting to the public, the meeting will be adjourned for 30 minutes until the issue is resolved or postponed until 6:30 p.m. on the 3rd of August 2021.
Thank you, Councillor McClure. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Henderson. All in favour? There being no objection, I declare the matter carried. Thank you. We'll move on now. So we have all councillors present. Apologies, leave of absence is nil. Councillors, we have item 3 on the agenda, declarations of interest and conflicts of interest. Got Councillor Driscoll. Yes, Councillor Driscoll, what is your conflict?
Mayor, I have a conflict at item 9.3.3.
Thank you for that. Please note that, governance. And Councillor Maltby.
My conflict is in 9.3.5, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We'll get governance to put you in the waiting room when we get to those items. Councillors, item 4 on the agenda, confirmation of minutes. 4.1, meeting of council 15th of June. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Driscoll.
That the minutes of the meeting of the Mount Alexander Shire Council held on the 15th of June 2021 be confirmed.
Thanks for that. Do I have a seconder, please, councillors? Councillor Anea. All in favour? Being no objection, I declare the matter carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, acknowledgements and nil. We'll move to item 6, which is public question time. And we have a range of questions and I'll go through them. And some of them relate, some of them have got several questions. So what I've agreed with the the CEO. He's going to answer those questions, but we're going to go through them one at a time. So, yeah, please bear with us while we do that. Okay, so the first one I've got in front of me is from Lisa Pollard, and please note the comments and some of the things in these questions. They're questions that are provided to us. They're not my personal comments or statements. So we'll just run through this. At the June Council meeting, residents asked questions relating to the proposed bioenergy biomass plant next to KR in Richards Road that were not answered, and CEO Darren Fuzzard referred residents to MASG, Mount Alexander Sustainability Group, and MAB site for information, which is unsatisfactory. Given Mount Alexander Shire Council has providing funding towards the feasibility study, the Memorandum of Understanding between Mount Alexander Sustainability Group and Mount Alexander Shire, Darren Fuzzard was happy to provide comments in the Midland Express. Could you please provide answers to the following questions? First one. Has Mount Alexander Shire Council completed their own feasibility study in regards to a bioenergy and biomass plant, or does Council intend to blindly follow what Mount Alexander Sustainability Group has proposed? CEO, would you like to comment on that?
Thanks, Mayor. First, can I just clarify, Council has not provided any of its own funding toward the feasibility study for this facility. It was in 2015, Council sought and received funding of $10,000 from the state government. It was under a program called the Victorian Climate Change Grants. And in doing so, there was no commitment of Council funds to that process, Mayor. I think that's just worth being clear about. Further to that, Mount Alexander Sustainability Group was successful in attracting $100,000 of funding from the state government under the New Energy Jobs Fund in the community category, by the way. And they then got another $146,000 from the Commonwealth Government Australian Renewable Energy Agency, which ARENA is the name for that, to progress their project. So that's the backdrop of the funding situation there. Just in relation to the question about have we done our own feasibility study? No, Council hasn't. As per the statements that I've actually made in the media in our press release, Mayor, on this matter, Council hasn't made any decisions in relation to how food and garden organics might be managed in the future. In accordance with the Victorian Government's circular economy policy, though, we and all other councils in Victoria are required to put in place a system for removing food and green organics from the waste stream by 2030. In the event that Mount Alexander Sustainability Group's development does occur, and any others in the region, Mayor, we would of course be looking at what is possible, what is the possible role of any such facility that exists when you make a determination about how you want to handle organic waste that Council has responsibility for.
Thanks for that, CEO. We'll keep going with the questions. Mount Alexander Shire Council is part of the Loddon Mallee Waste Resource and Recovery Group. What future plans does Mount Alexander Shire Council intend to implement regarding waste management in the Mount Alexander Shire?
Thanks, Mayor. Good question, and there's no doubt that there's many questions that need answers on how waste and recycling can be done better, not just here, but in Victoria and in Australia, Mayor. To find those answers in Mount Alexander Shire, though, we will be working closely with the Loddon Mallee Waste Resource and Recovery Group and also the state government over the coming years. It's clearly signalled in the state's action plan to achieve its circular economy policy that this is a really complex matter, Mayor, and it's going to take time to do it, hence the 2030 deadline for councils to have a solution for organic waste particularly. Recently, though, Mayor, what I'd add is we did run a public expression of interest process for people in our community with a real passion for waste management to get involved in our own community waste management reference group. I understand that we'll be making some appointments to that committee pretty soon, and they are going to help us think through many of those really difficult questions that are out there about waste and recycling there, and to make sure that we get our consultation with the wider community right as part of determining those long-term solutions, and also to determining what our waste management strategy should look like in the future.
Thanks for that, CEO. Another question from still from Lisa Pollard. We've got a few to go, so we'll keep going. Does the proposed anaerobic digester and biomass plant comply with Mount Alexander Shire planning requirements, encroaching nearer to residential homes?
Yeah, to my knowledge, Mayor, and this is current as of last night, Council hasn't received a planning permit application from Mount Alexander Sustainability Group for their proposal, so we can't comment on what that proposal might look like compared to the planning scheme at this time. We can't do hypotheticals. We haven't seen anything yet, Mayor. But as previously advised, when we do get a planning permit application in, then all of the relevant planning and approval questions will be explored at that time.
Thanks for that, CEO. In the past, Mount Alexander Shire residents could take green waste to the tip that was mulched and then sold to the public. Several other shires send their green waste for composting. Why can't Mount Alexander Shire follow this model?
Thanks, Mayor. I might defer to Acting Director Olive for that one.
Thanks, CEO. Thanks, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Lisa. Council still provides a service to the community. However, we don't actively promote it as we can't guarantee the quality of the mulch in relation to it being free of noxious weeds or other contaminants such as plastics.
Thanks for that, Acting Director Olive. Appreciate that. Okay, next one. In 2009, KR submitted a proposal to Council for the removal of the roadside vegetation along Richards and Dawes roads, which included removal of several mature Indigenous gum trees. Fortunately, councillors at the time voted against the permit to remove the trees. Does Council now think it is acceptable to allow the removal of the Indigenous mature gum trees in Richards and Dawes roads that provide habitat for abundant bird life and native animals to accommodate the proposed bioenergy plant?
Thanks, Mayor. As per previous comments, we don't have a planning permit application at this time for that potential facility, so can't offer any advice on a hypothetical situation, Mayor, but should a planning permit application be received for Mount Alexander Sustainability Group's proposal, then any such matters like that are pertinent would be considered in accordance with the planning scheme as part of looking at the entire proposal. So we have to wait and see what gets proposed, if it gets proposed, Mayor, to answer that question.
Thanks very much, CEO. Last question from Lisa. Comment to start with. Incinerators were banned in the Shire decades ago, and if the proposed biomass plant did not generate energy, according to EPA definition, this would be considered an incinerator. How is this acceptable for Mount Alexander Shire residents?
Sounding like a broken record, Mayor, but again, we don't have an application that identifies what technology might be used in any proposal from Mount Alexander Sustainability Group yet. When that application happens, if and when that application happens, then that would be considered by not only Council but other relevant authorities to whatever that technology happens to be that's proposed, Mayor.
Thanks for that, CEO. The next question I've got in front of me, and we're going to run through them in order. There's a couple more relating to the Don KR proposal later on, but we'll go through them all so we don't miss them. This one's from David Wybar. Question for Council. People are dumping their rubbish in the bush. Councillor Henderson calls dumping a low act, according to a recent report in the Midland Express. The fact is that some people can't afford to take their rubbish to the tip. Dumping is their only option. Council, it's time to introduce tip passes or ratepayers so that everyone can do the right thing and take their rubbish to the tip. I would like a response from our elected representatives on this matter. CEO, have we got one of our officers that can comment? Acting Director Kath Olive is going to talk to this one.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the question, Mr. Wybar. Currently, Council waives the cost of waste disposal at our transfer stations for verified groups such as our land care volunteers, with the groups advising Council of a planned clean-up of material, and it is arranged that they can take that to our station on the clean-up day free. Each year, Council subsidises individuals and groups who contact Council seeking support for the Clean Up Australia Day activities, and Council supports include subsidies for hiring of skip bins and or fee waivers for disposal of waste material. Statistics from Council's community safety and works areas show that there have been 115 reports since July 1 of 2020 with regards to the dumping of rubbish and or litter. To date, there have been 75 requests for Council works area to remove dumped rubbish, and last financial year, Council collected 7.7 tonnes of dumped rubbish. Based on the statistics available, the incidence of illegal dumping is relatively low. However, it's intended that the incidences of illegal dumping and the suggestion of a tip pass scheme be considered as part of developing Council's waste management strategy 2021 to 2030, which will be revised later this financial year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks for that. And in view of the fact that David Wybar asked for a response for our elected representatives, I would just say that illegal dumping of waste is not acceptable. If people are in a position where they have to get waste, they need to seek help. Well, seek help, but don't break the law, because it's not something that we can accept. It's not an acceptable alternative to dump your rubbish on the roads. And waste charges are certainly something that Council reviews every year, and we do our best to keep those at reasonable levels. So yeah, if you can't afford the waste charge, then I suggest you talk to your local councillor. Okay, we'll move on.
Sorry. I mean, they did. I mean, I was going to make a brief comment as well, because it was directed towards councillors, really, in a lot of sense.
Yes.
And I think, as Kath said, we are looking at it. I mean, personally, I favour the voucher system, but I don't know if I'll name them, but there are others who have other ideas and options. So, I mean, it is an option that we will be looking at as a council group going into the future.
Well, certainly we look at waste charges every year, so it's certainly something that we can talk about. But there's been a lot of discussion around hard rubbish and that type of thing. So yeah, next time it's on our agenda, we'll have a look at that, Stephen. I think we'll keep going if that's okay. Okay, the next one is from Malcolm Mars. Proposed bioenergy facility at Don KR small goods site. Can Council please table details of any current or previous MOUs with Mount Alexander Sustainability Group, which granted Mount Alexander Sustainability Group access to Council offices and a seat at the table to discuss and influence decisions being made by the Council? CEO, could you answer that one, please?
Sure, Mayor. The most recent MOU that existed between Mount Alexander Sustainability Group and Mount Alexander Shire was adopted in 2017. That was at the August 2017 meeting of Council, and the contents of that MOU was included in the report, Mayor. So that's a matter of public record. If anyone wants to read it, you can go to our council meeting minutes section of the website and you can read in full detail what that MOU includes. That was the second 3-year MOU that the parties have had, and it's substantially the same as the previous one, as I understand it, Mayor.
Sorry, can I just ask which month was that in 2017, just so that anyone wanting to look it up can find it?
So August 2017.
August. Thank you, CEO.
Thanks for that, Councillor Henderson. Okay, so the second question from Malcolm Mars. Does council consider it appropriate to continue with any such MOU after Mount Alexander Sustainability Group, as sole shareholder, created a legal entity, Mount Alexander Bioenergy Proprietary Limited, MAB, to build a commercial bioenergy facility?
Yeah, Mayor, the previous MOU that I was talking about from 2017, that has expired. It expired in June 2020. So as it stands, there is no existing MOU between Mount Alexander Sustainability Group and council. So that's a matter for future consideration of council.
Yeah, but in terms of Mount Alexander Sustainability Group having some business entity as an offshoot, that wouldn't preclude council from having a memorandum of understanding in place, would it?
I don't expect so, Mayor, but it's a pertinent question to ask, and certainly when we assuming that there is an intent, and I believe there is, to continue in some form of memorandum of understanding arrangement with Mount Alexander Sustainability Group, we will address that matter as part of the report that comes to council in the open council meeting, Mayor.
Thanks for that, CEO. The third question from Malcolm Mars. Does council consider it appropriate to refer questions asked in connection with the bioenergy proposal to a proponent which has had access to council officers and a seat at the table to discuss and influence decisions being made by the council?
Yes, Mayor. Questions that are asked in relation to Mount Alexander Sustainability Group's proposal are referred to Mount Alexander Sustainability Group because it's their project. There is no one more appropriate to answer questions about their project than Mount Alexander Sustainability Group, Mayor.
Thanks for that, CEO. Item 4, what was council's role in Mount Alexander Sustainability Group's feasibility study, which concluded that the best option for a waste-to-energy facility in Mount Alexander Shire was at the Don Kayar site? When did it become aware of this conclusion, and why was this information not made public?
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned in the answer to Ms Pollard's questions, Mayor, council did assist Mount Alexander Sustainability Group to secure that $10,000 from the state government for the feasibility study. And while council, and I mean officers and past councils, were aware of the findings of the feasibility study, as is often the case in business proposals, Mayor, throughout the Shire, all of the intellectual property related to Mount Alexander Sustainability Group's proposal and project are owned by Mount Alexander Sustainability Group. So it's not appropriate at all for us to be sharing that information. We were privy to that information, but we don't own that information.
Okay, thanks for that, CEO. And the fifth one from Malcolm Mars, and I'll read it as printed. I'll correct it. Can council please table full details of its previous and current involvement in the bioenergy facility, including the amount of funds it has contributed to date?
Yeah, as previously mentioned, Mayor, council has not contributed any of its own funds to that project. We did help get the $10,000 from the state government initially, which led to other funding from the state and federal government. In addition to that, though, and I say this like several other organisations, both public and private in the region, our officers have provided information regarding the waste that is handled through our operations. So for us, particularly the Castlemaine landfill, and as is the case for a wide variety of commercial initiatives across the Shire, senior staff, including myself, have facilitated discussions about this proposal with other levels of government and departments, as we do for many, many prospective proposals throughout the Shire.
Yeah, so just to clarify, as with council being the decision-making body at council, this bioenergy plant has not been before council at its formal council meeting for a decision on this project at any time.
No, Mayor, there's been no ask of council formally on this project that I am aware of. Recognising it started before my time too, I must admit, but I have found no evidence of an ask of council. There's been information shared with council for sure, and as I say, on a commercial in confidence basis, it's been shared. But the council, this one and preceding councils, to my knowledge, have not been asked to make a decision in relation to this current proposal.
Thanks for that, Theo. And over the page, we've got a question from Karen Mars. Mount Alexander Bioenergy says on its website that council was represented on the steering committee which led to the selection of the Don KR site for the proposed bioenergy facility. Can council please clarify if the biomass wood burning plant was included in the bioenergy project at the time of site selection, and if not, will council now recommend a new site selection process to be undertaken which considers all the costs and risks and not just the supposed benefits?
Yeah, I'll answer this in the only way that I can, Mayor. The range of the waste that's been selected as inputs to this proposal by Mount Alexander Sustainability Group and the technologies that it proposes in response to those inputs is a matter for Mount Alexander Sustainability Group as part of their development of a business model that they believe will work economically and achieve the results that they want to achieve. So council's view on the appropriateness or otherwise of any and all of the elements of Mount Alexander Sustainability Group's proposal will be addressed if and when a planning permit application is received, Mayor.
Thanks for that, Theo. Moving on to the next question from Alice Matheson regarding the Farnsworth Street private earthworks on public land. The illegal earthworks on public land at 37 Farnsworth Street continues to cost the ratepayers dearly. This includes ongoing officer time and an outsourced unfinished engineering assessment. In December 2020, while council was attempting to bring these works into compliance, further illegal works were added. Jess Howard, Tanya Goddard and Jude Holt have all left the Shire, but the big mess remains and is no closer to compliance. My question seems obvious. Will council remove the works on the public land? CEO, would you like to talk to that one, or Acting Director Kath Olive? Acting Director Kath Olive.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Ms Matheson, and thank you for your patience to date on the matter. I'd like to acknowledge that we know that this is taking much longer than is ideal for all parties, but council is waiting for the finalised independent engineering report. We'll make a decision on what the appropriate next steps are once we have a copy of the assessment.
Thanks for that, Director Olive. Okay, the next question is from Alan and Jessie Stanley. Parklet. Just some notes on the benefits of the parklet at 2626A Templeton Street, Castlemaine. St Florian Cafe and wild food and wine businesses for the 27th July Council meeting. During these difficult times, the parklets allow us extra space to use when the government mandates density requirements inside and outside. And as lockdown 5 continues, and it looks as if lockdowns may be a thing for the rest of the year, having extra space outdoors will make customers feel safer and gives us more business confidence. It utilises effectively what is a dead but unique space. People's thoughts on COVID safety seem to be that it's safer to dine outside and prefer that option when the weather allows, so the extra space can accommodate people's health. It provides a safe place to dine for families to enjoy outdoors with their children. The extra space means more patronage, which in turn means we can employ more locals. Last point, it enhances the Templeton Street precinct and draws more people to the area that normally wouldn't know and in turn visit local shops in the precinct. And there's not a question there, but I'd just like to thank Alan and Jesse Stanley for those comments. Okay. So that concludes public question time, the questions I have before me. So we'll move on. Petitions and joint letters. I've got item 7. Council has received a non-compliant petition regarding the proposed supermarket planning permit application. It has been non-compliant as defined in the Governance Rules 2020 as follows. If a petition or joint letter relates to a statutory matter, planning matter, or any other matter for which there is a community engagement process already in place, the petition or joint letter will be acknowledged and the lead signatory advised that it will be considered and responded to in accordance with those processes. The proposed supermarket planning application will be dealt with at item 9.3.5 of this agenda. Now, if you just bear with me a moment, I've got another petition. And this one is a compliant petition, and this one was received late. And what we'll do, I'll just read out the rules for dealing with this, but as per the Governance Rules 2020, 12.2.1, Council will acknowledge in a scheduled meeting receipt of petitions and letters that meet the requirements of Clause 12.2 and are received during question time. Council will also acknowledge receipt of complying petition letters that have been received since the last scheduled meeting, 12.2.2, unless otherwise resolved or provided for in Clause 12.2, a report that responds to an accepted petition or joint letter will be provided for Council's consideration within 2 scheduled Council meetings. So this one is dated the 27th, but I understand it was received after the notes for the meeting were prepared, and it's to the governance of Mount Alexander Shire. Please find enclosed a petition to change the speed limits through Friarstown from the residents. Yours sincerely, Chris and Glenda Athy, 25 Castle Main Street. Okay, so we've got a petition to change the speed limit, and it's got quite a few signatures on it. It complies, so that we've received that, and that will be dealt with in 2 Council meetings time. Okay, so committee reports nil. The next item on the agenda is 9.1, and it's approval of fraud and corruption prevention policy and fraud and corruption control plan. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Stephen Gardner. And what is your motion?
As printed, yeah.
As printed, thank you. And do I have a seconder there? Councillor Driscoll, thank you. And do Do I have any objections? No objections. So all in favour? Declare the matter carried. Thank you very much. (9.2.1) Making space, outdoor dining and entertainment. Councillors, I've got a recommendation. Do I have a motion, please? Yes, Councillor McClure. Can you unmute yourself, please, Councillor McClure?
My apologies, Mayor. I'll move that council notes that the Making Space funding expires on the 30th of September 2021, and 2, approves an extension of the Making Space program for up to 12 months from the 1st of October 21 for the parklet permits and the public space activation infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McClure. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Maltby. Any objections? There being no objections, I declare the matter carried. Thank you.
I'd like to hear what Councillor McClure has to say about that motion there.
Councillor McClure, would you like to make some comment while I get to the next page?
Thank you, Councillor Henderson, for that. Yeah, look, it's an important. This has been an important program for the shopkeepers around the town. I know when we were leading up to the election last year, there was lots of comments about how we were going to support businesses during the COVID lockdown period, and I think this has been one initiative that has worked extremely well. As per the comments that were made by Alan and Jessie Stanley from St Florian Cafe and the Wild Cafe, it's been extremely popular. Certainly the place behind, or the open space behind the pharmacy in Frederickson's Lane has been a popular spot during COVID. So it's been well supported by both residents in Castlemaine, and I'm sure in Malden too. I'm sure Councillor Gardner would back me up that the open space on the corner in Malden has been very popular and well supported. So I do support this motion, Mayor.
Thanks for that, Councillor McClure and Councillor Henderson. We're right to move on now.
I just wanted to make a comment, probably backing what Councillor McClure was saying with Malden. It has been very successful and very popular. Considering we can change a whole corner without much of a argument, but we can't get 2 crossovers in, which causes things. So I must say, well done to the staff. It's a great initiative, and yes, the community is using it a lot. It's really good.
Yes. And I'd like to say that a few years ago, the Theatre Royal, or the council, had a temerity, a council officer had the temerity to grant the Theatre Royal permission to block off a huge number of car parking spaces. I think it might have even been 4 in front of their place, so that they could have an extra space during the festival. Big community pushback from certain sectors, very angry about it. And yet now they have their parklet in front of their venue, and it's there until now. We're deciding until the end of the year. There was a survey done by Sheikh Mount Alexander, and okay, you have to know it was there. But, 45 people responded to what they thought about the parklets, and 5% didn't like it, which probably tells me 2 people out of 45 said no. So it's looking pretty popular. I think, COVID's changed people's attitudes a lot. I think in a way we do have to support our local businesses. It's absolutely imperative, because they go under, we all go under. We're a community together. So, and yeah, I echo Malden. Well, what a fantastic space that is. Beautiful quality work. I think it was the men's shed built the fixtures there, and the tables and chairs and stuff. And anyway, it's really nice. I went out with a certain ex-mayor to visit it, and we liked it very much.
Thanks for that, Councillor Henderson. I would just note your audio quality's dropped off. I don't know whether you do anything at your end, but it sounds like you're at the Olympic Games or something. But anyway, that's fine. Okay, I think we'll move on, councillors. Thank you very much. 9.3.1, review of mayoral and councillor allowances. Councillors, do I have a motion, please? Councillor Gardner?
Yeah, I have a motion. And I'll read this motion. It's slightly different to what's printed. Obviously, there's an administrative reason. It's not a big deal. So my motion is that council sets the mayoral allowance for the period 1st July 21 to 3rd June 2025 at the maximum level for a category 1 council per annum, and sets the council allowance for the period 1st July 2021 to June 2025 at the maximum level for category 1 council per annum. The amounts are the same as printed though.
Thanks for that, Councillor Gardner. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor McClure, all those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. I declare the matter carried, councillors.
I was just going to point out it works out to be about $5 an hour.
Thanks for that, Councillor Gardner.
Matt,
Okay.
is this volume any different?
The quality, sorry, the sound. Christine, speak again.
Can you hear me any better?
Yeah, a little bit. Perhaps keep your reply short.
I'll think about that.
Okay, we'll move on to 9.3.
Challenge now.
9.3.2, extension to COVID-19 hardship policy. Councillors, we've got a recommendation. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Maltby.
I'll move the council adopts the COVID-19 financial hardship policy until the 30th of June 2022.
Thank you for that, Councillor Maltby, and do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Anea. Would you like to talk to this one, Councillor Maltby?
I think it's self-explanatory that the council has helped people that have had financial hardship because of COVID, and we're extending that period to the end of June next year.
Thank you for that, Councillor Maltby. Okay, being no objection, I declare the matter carried. Okay, we're moving on to 9.3.3, and Councillor Driscoll is going to leave us now. Thank you, Governance. He's going to go into the waiting room. And 9.3.3, determine sale of lots 5, 6, 7, 11, 12, 13 and 14, Fitzgerald's Close, Wesley Hill Business Park. Councillors, we have a recommendation. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Maltby.
I'll move, Mr. Mayor, that the council, having heard and considered all submissions received through a section 223 process, determines to release lots 5, 6, 7, 11, 12, 13 and 14, PS 629772 Wesley Hill Business Park for sale, and authorises the CEO to accept any offers on the lots where the offer is equal to or above the independent valuation required under section 189 of the Local Government Act 1989, and 2, authorises the CEO to sign all documentation required to execute the sales in accordance with the above.
Thanks for that, Councillor Maltby. Do I have a second for that, please, councillors? Councillor Henderson. Now, are there any objections to this? Okay, would you like to talk to it, Councillor Maltby?
Yes, thank you. Look, it's the last remaining blocks in the industrial estate or business park. We have listened to the neighbours, etc., and the other people that made submissions, but reality is there's very little land available for a business park activities. Council years ago made this one, and it's time to let it continue to be fully used.
Good. Councillor Maltby, does anyone else wish to speak on this matter? Councillor Gardner, you're muted.
I'm not disputing what Bill's just said, but the process from here is, yes, it's put out for sale. So regardless if someone comes with, it's still open to anyone to come forward with plans or proposals, and then obviously it'll be considered. So yes, happy to sell it, but obviously others out there, if they have views and ideas, they can bring it forward.
Thanks for that, Councillor Garden. So is there any objection to the motion that has been put? There being no objection, I declare the matter carried. We'll go ahead with the sale of the remaining lots, and we'll now invite Councillor Driscoll back into the meeting. Thank you, Governance. Okay, so the next one is 9.3.4, and it's PA 001 2021/331 Drummond Vaughan Road, Glenluce, use and development of a dwelling. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor McClure.
Mayor, I would like to move the motion as documented that council issue a notice of decision to refuse a planning permit for the use and development of a dwelling on 331 Drummond Vaughan Road, Glenluce, on the following grounds. The proposal is contrary to state and local planning policy framework as they relate to the protection of agricultural land. 2, the use and development of a dwelling on a site less than 40 hectares is contrary to the purpose and the decision guidelines of the farming zone. 3, the proposal would not support and enhance agricultural production and result in the fragmentation of productive agricultural land. And 4, the proposal would lead to the concentration and proliferation of dwellings in the area and have an impact on this and the impact on this on the use of the land for agriculture.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor McClure. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Anea. Are there any objections to this one? Yes, there's some objections there. So would you like to speak to the motion, please, Councillor McClure?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is an important issue up before council at this point in time. I've spoken at length to farmers in the district, quite a number of them, in particular one farmer in particular that owns quite a bit of land in the area that has and owns similar ground to this just down the road, and similar in the sense that it has lots of small lots and within his farm. He's farmed this farm for a number of generations, and I think he also wrote a letter in of objection to the proposal. It's not high quality agricultural farming land, but it is good quality farming land and suitable for production of lamb and sheep production. This sort of thing, I think, I support the government and council's push to stop the fragmentation of farmland in our Shire, and this is the exact example of how it could happen. If we let this one go, I know there's another 2 or 3 other parcels next door that will have probably applications very shortly for exactly the same thing, and soon we'll have a small community out at Glenluce Springs or Glenluce at the moment, where there is no community at the moment apart from a couple of houses. There's no services, there's no road services, there's no water, there's nothing there. And that what would stop the McDonald's or anybody else that own land within the vicinity of doing exactly the same thing, selling off parcels of their land for profit and not considering the fact that this land is good, still good, productive agricultural land. So I can't say it importantly enough of this is an example of where we need to be very careful about the, as it says in item 4, this proposal would lead to the concentration and proliferation of dwellings in the area and probably in any other area around the Shire where you have farmland with small allotments on them, and there's quite a bit of it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks for that. Would you like to speak now, Councillor Anair, or speak at the end?
I'll speak at the end. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Now, who else would like to speak? Councillor Maltby got his hand up first. Councillor Maltby.
Thank you. And so sorry. In speaking against the motion, this allotment adds up to 11.5 acres of basically grassland. The application talks about a pony stud and that there will be some agricultural activities take place. Around the district of Glenluce, Vaughan, Friarstown, there is similar properties already operating on similar sizes and a bit more. I don't believe there will be a major prolific activity of more people wanting to do it. The applicant is trying to use her land to the best ability. Just recently, council granted a permit on farming zone in Friarstown. Granted, it was three times the size, but reality is that it's not real good productive farming land. And if somebody can use it with ponies, etc., then we as a council should be granting a permit. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Henderson.
Thanks for that. Yes, we do seem to be a bit inconsistent, don't we, Councillor Maltby? Last month, we followed the officer's recommendation to approve a dwelling, not really much mention of any farming, in Friarstown on, 3 times the amount of land. But what was the difference there? Why was this one now being refused on recommendation, whereas last month was being recommended to approve? Last month, there was consolidation of, my memory serves me, about 15 lots, which could go the way that this one goes if you guys get your own way. Each one becoming a farmlet, each one becoming a couple of acres in somebody's house and a nice little dwelling and another little community. Okay, but no, they consolidated all these into one. That was first prerequisite, and that's the first thing they did. And the other thing is that the land was deemed to be, according to our rural land study, of poor quality. It was the least productive. And if you only have to look at it to see why: steep, rocky, barely any soil. Glenluce is the opposite, not that far away, but goodness me, it's a river flat. It's on the Loddon River. It's actually irrigated land. It's not that they have accurate irrigation, but there's irrigation rights there from the river. Loddon's not bad for water supply. It's a free river up there. And it's a precious bit of farming land in a beautiful valley. And yes, there is a viable farm further upstream. It's been going for many generations, but this kind of thing will be its death now if you start allowing people, and yes, there will be another 3 follow on from this. Sure as spring follows winter. So I don't approve it. I think the officers have got it right in this case, and I think because of the quality of the land, because of the situation, we should be following the rules, following the guidelines, and not approving this in the farm zone.
Thanks for that, Councillor Henderson. Your audio seems to have improved, so thank you very much. Other councillors wishing to address it? Councillor Gardner.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So I'm actually speaking against the motion. As with these things, it needs a planning permit, so it's not a hard and fast thing. The most thing for me, the recent VCAT decision, which basically said it's around the actual situation. So the situation for me is that, yes, it's already fragmented up there. So this isn't, 200 acres prime agricultural farmland being used for crops and what have you. It's fragmented. It's to be used with breeding horses, as is the neighbour. So there's no difference in terms of that. It's surrounded by similar properties. So I don't believe there's a reason for that either. I personally would always support keeping farmlands, but I mean, we have to get serious about what is a farm. Like, you know, a farm isn't a couple of ponies and a couple of this, couple of that. It's not a serious financial proposition, and nor will it ever become one. The land is already fragmented there. And we're also currently having lots of debate and discussions about housing affordability and prices. There are so many of these little blocks around here that gives opportunity for people and families who can live there. So I support issuing a permit, so against this particular recommendation.
Thanks for that, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Driscoll, and then we'll go back to Councillor Anea. Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mayor. Any dwelling proposed within the farming zone on less than 40 acres can be considered, as we all know. This particular one is the development will not inhibit the rights of existing farming operations, and it's not located in an area moderate to agricultural quality, in my opinion. We have a massive affordable accommodation situation in this Shire. We've got plenty of these little blocks floating around, as Councillor Gardner said. I understand it's not the only solution, but it's one of many solutions that we need to address, and we need to do it fairly soon. And I think this is a good way to address and have some sort of solution with our low affordability in this town.
Thanks for that, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Anea, you seconded the motion before us. Would you like to have some comments on it now, please?
Sure. I think, yeah, we have, as a council so far, we have been a bit inconsistent on these. And I think that's a good thing, because it means we're looking at them case by case rather than just making a sweeping decision for all matters that come before us. And I would like us to continue doing that. I didn't know a lot about farmland before coming onto council. And what I do know now is that this farmland that the application is proposed to develop is of moderate agricultural rating, which is the highest in the Shire. We don't have a lot of great land. We have moderate land. That is the highest we have. If we continue to set a precedent of fragmenting farmland, as said in one of these VCAT cases, fragmentation into small holdings will make the land unusable for genuine farming. Now, that's not such a problem if the agricultural rating of the land is low, but this is moderate, which again is the best we have. I also see the point that Stephen and Matt are making about possibilities for affordable housing. I don't see this particular one as being that at all. I see this particular one, and it says so in the report, that there is insufficient justification to demonstrate how the proposed use and development would enhance agricultural productivity. The people want to live here, but I don't think they should just get to because it's farm zoned. I think we have to be careful, and I agree we do have an affordable housing crisis, but I don't think giving away all our moderate farmland to be built and made into housing is the solution, and I don't think so in this case. So I am seconding Gary's motion.
Thanks for that, Councillor Anea. I'll just make a couple of comments in relation to this matter. Firstly, there was a figure of 40 acres mentioned. It's actually 40 hectares, which is 100 acres, is the minimum size for an as of right dwelling on farming zone land. So just so people don't get the incorrect signal there. But the other thing is, thinking about this while the debate's been going on, is that all of these small blocks in our Shire would have had a dwelling on them at settlement, and that's how they're established, and that's why they're like they are. And that is a concern for me, because I don't think our current planning scheme recognises that. But that being said, we've got a motion before us, and so will councillors in favour of the motion please raise their hand. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So the motion is carried. Would anyone like a division on that? Yes, Councillor Maltby. So those in favour, please raise your hand again. So we've got McClure, Cordy, Henderson and Anea. And against, we've got Maltby, Gardner and Driscoll. Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on to, I've got my pages in order. We're moving on to 9.3.5, which is the number 2 Duke Street and 9 Urquhart Street and 90 to 94 Forest Street. Development of land for a supermarket and 2 shops. Use of lands to sell packaged liquor. Reduction in cars parking on site. Removal of native tree and older access in a road zone category 1 and associated building and works. And I understand we have a conflict with this one. Is Councillor Maltby. So governance, please put Councillor Maltby in the waiting room. And that has happened. Excellent. Okay, councillors, this is a very important issue. Have I got a motion there, please? Councillor Anea.
Oh my God, I feel like this has just been hanging over my head for a really long time. It's so good to have this at a meeting finally. So I would like to move the recommendation as printed to a notice of decision to refuse the planning permit with the addition of an 8th point, which will read, and notes that if the applicant was to provide formal amendments to their current application in response to the issues raised in this report, Council directs that the matter be brought back to Council for further consideration and direction.
Okay, that's your motion, Councillor Anea, and we got a second of that, Councillor Gardner. Okay, Councillor Anea, would you like to talk to this matter, please?
Sure. I feel like I've talked about it so much already, but I'll do a little bit more. You know, when I was elected to council, this was the only thing that I knew would be facing me at some point down the track. And it's just been building and building. And, you know, we've gotten so many emails and had so many phone calls and heard from so many different people about it, that when we finally got the report, it was great to read it all together and to be able to make a decision based on the information that was contained in that report. It is a great report. It is one of the best council reports I've read. I cannot say this strongly enough. The language choice, superb, really enjoyed it. We obviously had a number of objections. 178 official objections were received in the, week before last, maybe week before that. We heard from 30 plus objectors, as well as the applicant and a couple of supporters. So we really heard from a lot of people, as well as all the emails and phone calls and everything else. Most of the objections that people gave to us were around the size and location. I can't tell you how many people started their objection by saying, we are not opposed to a new supermarket in Castlemaine. So many people said that, but then they followed it up by saying, we just don't want it to be that big or in that location, or for it to have the traffic and safety implications that this proposal does. So the big things that stood out for me after looking at all the information, the big things were around traffic and safety, as well as the use of public land for essentially a private car park. So the submitted application, it chews up basically. It said in the report that it consumes the Urquhart Street Council managed road reserve to put a private car park there for a supermarket and does not provide equitable access to all users. So these are issues we've been asking the applicant to fix since 2019, and it says in the report these have been largely ignored. The submitted plans show the council managed Urquhart Street Road Reserve consumed by car park spaces, restricting public access to a local road, and it's been designed to accommodate the needs of the developer over the community, especially pedestrians and cyclists. The report kind of ends by saying there are no sound planning recommendations for issuing a permit with the current design and layout. You know, so many people said to us, we want a new supermarket. That is not in question. But the application we have in front of us is not that supermarket. It cannot be built like that. It is unsafe. And the report that we have does not recommend it being built. So that is my motion. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Neer. Who else wants to talk about the supermarket? Councillor McClure was in first.
Have we ascertained if there's any objections?
Objections to the motion? Well, is anyone objecting to the motion?
No, okay.
Okay, so Councillor McClure, if you'd like to go, please.
Did you have a seconder to the motion, Mayor, too? I'm not quite sure that you did. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Stephen, I'm sorry.
I've got Councillor Gardner as a seconder. Sorry if I omitted that. So would you like to speak, Councillor?
No, look, Rosie said it all. She spoke extremely well, and I just want to support her in what she said. Nearly everybody that spoke to us, I read over 600 pages of objections over the weekend, and nearly every one of them supported the principle of having a supermarket in that point. The issue was about the proximity to the school and traffic issues that raises, the visual amenity and other things. But no, Rosie said it all. I just wanted to thank her for making all the points that I would have made, and thank the staff for producing such a well-documented report. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor McClure. Other councillors? Councillor Gardner.
Oh, did you want to go first, Christine?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak, but I think it's important. We all say our piece on this one. Yes, it's been around for a very long time. I remember when the previous application was approved, that was a very long process because it involved changing the planning scheme to allow it to be commercially zoned first. And then a small supermarket was approved. And yeah, I was pleased about that. I would have been happy to see a small supermarket, but it was not to be. And so then we received this application for a big supermarket. And I'm no great fan of big supermarkets, but I'm in a small minority there. And I know a lot of people rely on them as a place to go and do their weekly shops. And I think it's high time that we had one closer than Kangaroo Flat or Maryborough. So I don't think it's the ideal place, but it's the only place, and that's the place that's been zoned, etc. It is in a tight lot. It's in the entrance to our beautiful town. It's opposite a school. It's not that far from the roundabout that's another traffic light. So it's not ideal, but there you go. We've got to have a decent traffic management solution, and what we're offered at the moment is just rubbish. And I'm sure that the applicant themselves are working on that as we speak, because it will be a lot more expensive to get a proper solution here, but that's what Castlemaine has to have. That's what we deserve. And it would be an outrage if what is proposed by the applicant at the moment actually was implemented. We would have just the most horrendous mess around the roundabout. About school drop-off and pickups would be a nightmare. If the traffic, people moving by foot and on bike, etc., would be a hazardous occupation. It would just be horrible. I'm sure VCAT will come and visit the town as part of consideration of this, and I'm sure the VCAT members will see as they come into town how important it is that we have a proper, well-controlled traffic solution there, and somehow working out a way of using our public road and still keeping it a public road, because we're the managers of that and we're not giving that away in a hurry, because we have a responsibility to our whole community. So that being the case and that being sorted out, I'll be happy to hear that VCAT's approved it, but not before. So I fully support the current recommendation is that we would have refused it under the current status of it. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak now?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I want to start from the front that it really actually makes me very sad that I'm not going to sit here and approve the supermarket. This Shire needs one. I mean, we've had so many studies done, and about 60% of our community go to Bendigo or Maryborough, and a size of our town, we actually need a supermarket. I know my wife would prefer an Aldi one as the current one, but apparently Aldi is not interested. So actually, I'm in some ways really sad that we are taking this position, or I am. And I think partly a message to the developers in playing games and going to VCAT to try and force a decision that doesn't meet our community needs is wrong. So there are three main areas that they need to sort out. And I just hope that they actually do it properly and it comes back to council and we can have a proper decision made on this, because I think, as everyone has said, we want a supermarket. So I support Rosie's recommendation.
Thanks for that, Councillor Gardner. Before we vote on this, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. When you reflect on it, this, in the time I've been on council, I think this is the fourth time the supermarket or supermarket related matters have been before council. 3 times it's been approved. It's a classic Trojan horse where we approved a small supermarket, and now the developer is wanting to give us a big supermarket. The substantial objections to the proposal in the community, and we've heard a lot. Like certainly, there's a lot of interest in this project. My particular concerns with what's before us, and that's all we can work on. But I'm concerned about the parking. I'm concerned about the proximity to the school, and I'm concerned about the treatment of the traffic and access in and out of the proposed facility. And I'm also concerned with this ambit claim for the community-owned or council-owned road reserve for parking. And okay, understand there might need to be a compromise there, but there's a lot of issues. At the end of the day, VCAT will determine the matter, but they do want to know what we think, and that's why it's before us here this evening. So I just ask you, for those of you supporting Councillor Anair's motion, please raise your hand. Okay, so there's being no objectors, I declare the matter carried. Thank you, Councillor Anair. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Henderson. You're muted, Councillor Henderson.
Do we want to call for a division?
Sorry.
Can I call for a division? I know it's
we should call for a division. Yes.
Yeah, call for a division.
Right.
Also,
Okay,
Councillor Driscoll didn't get a chance to speak.
Councillor Driscoll, do you wish to speak on this matter? It's been determined,
okay.
but you can still speak.
It's been determined, but okay, thank you. I just wanted to point out that that last note is that if the applicant was to provide formal amendments to their current objections in response to this, then it'll come back to us. So it's not done and dusted in terms of that. If they do what they say they were going to do, then we can reconsider it.
Thanks for that, Councillor Driscoll. My apologies. I should have double checked. Okay, so in terms of a division, we've noted that governance, please note that all councillors voted in favour of the motion put by Councillor Anair. Thank you. Okay, councillors, we'll now move on to item 10 on the agenda, which is delegates' reports. and I know the CEO has a delegate's report, so would you like to speak to your report, CEO?
Thanks very much, Mayor, and Augustine, if you don't mind putting that on the screen for the councillors, that'd be great. Thank you. Our usual monthly report, Mayor, of various activities that we've been up to. A couple I'd like to pick out, if I could. One event that I was fortunate enough to attend, and then a welcome and a farewell as well. So starting with one of the events that I'd like to pick out was something that Councillor Driscoll and I had the real pleasure of attending last month, was the launch of the Mount Alexander Shire Disability Action Group's new Disability Access Guide. And that's for businesses in Mount Alexander. And as a side benefit, it was in the tap room, which was fantastic. So that group, Mayor, has been incredibly important over recent years to us. In particular, Lorraine de Plassier helps us a great deal in better understanding inside of council and better appreciating what it means to live with disability, and also importantly what we can do in our work to make our Shire a better place for people of all abilities to enjoy. So this latest work came as a result of a community grant that you approved, councillors, and offers some really great suggestions about how our businesses can make themselves more accessible for all people. And Augustine, if you're able to just put that front page on the screen, that would be great. But I've got the black and white version in front of me, Mayor, but it's a fantastic document, and all businesses really encourage you to go onto the MASDAG's component of the cch.org.au website, where you could download under the MASDAG, which is Mount Alexander Shire Disability Advocacy Group. You can download their documents, and this is one of the ones. That's what it looks like. It's a fantastic document that we really would love to have all of the businesses in our Shire have a good look at, as we are doing ourselves, and see what you can do to really make it a better place for everybody of all abilities, man. So I just wanted to mention that one. A welcome that I wanted to extend was I had the pleasure of getting to meet our new station commander in Castlemaine, who is Senior Sergeant Darren McQueen, Mayor, and it was really great to get to meet him. He's only been here for a few weeks now, I think, Darren, and Peter Carey, who was his predecessor, was a great partner to the Shire Mayor in really wanting to work with us and the community to really make sure that the Shire is the safe place that it already is, and that it stays that way. And it was terrific to catch up with Senior Sergeant Darren McQueen, who shares that same desire to work so closely with us in the community, Mayor. So I just wanted to say welcome, and really looking forward to working with you over the coming years, Darren. The farewell that I wanted to also mention is on the second page there, which was I had the great pleasure to attend a farewell for a great friend of mine, Mayor, the Regional Director of the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, and someone who many of you know as well, Marg Allen, who has in local government areas, and I had the pleasure of working with her for about 5 years in City of Greater Bendigo, local government areas throughout this region and other places, and then more recently over the last 5 years in state government, has made enormous contributions to the organisations that she's been in, but more broadly to the entire region that we all live in. And it was her retirement. There was some very, very senior people from government departments there wishing her all the best, and I think that just reflects the regard that she's been held in for a very long time by anybody who's ever worked with her. So just wanted to wish her a very great retirement in whatever form that takes for her. So thank you, Mayor. Happy to answer questions as usual.
Thanks, CEO. Any questions, councillors?
What was the interest in the Barringup Primary School?
Councillor Gardner may want to talk about this one with me as well, but that was a meeting that was initiated by the Education Department, Councillor Henderson, to talk about what's the future possibilities for the school on the basis that it's highly unlikely, or dare I say, not going to happen, to turn back into a school in future. So what is the possibility for it? We had a great meeting with a number of community members out there, Councillor Henderson, and it was just terrific to have a conversation with them about possibilities and also how they might like us to work through a process to sort that out. And at Councillor Gardner's initiative, of course, in the current year budget, there is a barring up plan that will get developed, and this should sit really well with the conversations that we have in developing that plan, I think, Councillor Gardner.
Yeah, it's actually very sad. It's a very small school. It's been there for a long time. It's probably good in a way. The Department of Education has sort of kicked it down the road for a few years, so at least the decision has been made. They're not going to reopen, so now we'll just work with the community, see what we can do, hopefully going in the future.
Thanks for that, Stephen, and CEO Darren Fozzard. Councillors, any further delegates' reports?
I just wanted to mention one, Tony, and you were there, and it's on the list, the power come down in Malvern, and it's officially done. Power lines are gone.
Oh, wow. Does it look different? Do you notice?
Well, no, someone said that to me the other day, and I said, well, no, you don't actually notice because it's not there. Does that make sense? Yeah.
There you go. Oh, dear. I have to go and have a look.
So, very substantial project. When I was out there last, the poles in the main street were still in place, and I have been back since to have a look. So they're gone now. So that's great news, Councillor Gardner. Thanks very much for that report. Okay, councillors, we'll move on. There's no.
I've got to give you a delegate's report about the deliberative democracy training that I did a couple of days ago, and had Lisa Knight and Kath Olive there. Sorry, Lisa Knight and Manager Olive were both there. It was being run, not quite sure whose initiative it was, but it was being offered free training. There were about 30 of us there. We were the only people from local government, I was aware, run by a couple of women from an organisation called Mosaic Lab. And it was how to run a deliberative democracy process. And for those people, councillors, who are not familiar with the term, it is actually features widely in the new Local Government Act that all local governments must do deliberative engagement when putting together their any strategic plans, such as the council plan. And we have to show improvement in this area over the next 8 years. And so what's deliberative democracy? Well, it's a process of collaboration with our community, and the key aspects of it that make it different from other kinds of surveys and listening posts and getting people to tell us what they think, websites, Facebook, etc., is it involves several days of deliberation by a group of people. They have to learn and consider options, that deliberate, and end up writing their own report. The group that does this work is selected using a random and stratified recruitment method, and independently facilitated, and is hosted by the organisation that wants to know what the output is. So, it can be done by local government, state government, water authorities, typically organisations that have got a fair bit of money to put behind it, because it doesn't come cheap. It involves, but the key for me was the idea of selecting people at random, and that's a big process. So instead of saying, okay, who wants to be on this group that's going to decide what goes in our council plan, put your hands up and come along to a meeting, which is the techniques we have at the moment. It's a case of sending a large number of people, like 10% of the Shire, a letter saying, do you want to be part of this process? And getting people to respond. Those people who say yes, maybe 2,000 people will say yep, and then from there you randomly select them according to the demographics of the Shire, and put together. I think the magic number is 43 people. Evidently, that's a good statistically valid sample. Interesting, isn't it? It doesn't matter if it's 100 100 population or a population of 1 million, the number of 43 is the magic number that works. Don't ask me how. Anyway, it was very interesting. It went over 4 hours, and I have to say it's one of the best training sessions I've ever been on. It was very engaging, and I don't know if either Kath or Lisa want to add anything. But I think it's pretty safe to say that council will be engaging in this kind of deliberative democracy research, not for this council plan, but for the next council plan, and probably for some big things that we need to know about from the community in between. So interesting stuff.
Thanks for that, Councillor Henderson. 43 is the magic number. It's the meaning of life, according to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
42.
Oh, I thought it was 43. There you go. Okay. All right. So we'll move on. There's no notice of motion. There's no urgent special business. Item 13 is a confidential item. So, councillors, we're going to close the meeting now. Do I have someone to move the recommendation, please? Councillor Driscoll, second.
Councillor Clark.
Sorry, Councillor Driscoll.
Yeah, no, the recommendation as read. Yep.
Yeah, and it's seconded by Gary McClure. Councillor McClure, all those in favour? Declare the matter carried. So we'll say farewell to everyone watching us on YouTube. Thank you for your interest, and councillors, if you stay on